Hello guys, good morning. Welcome back to the vlog. It has been a hectic last few days. I, as y'all know, went with my mother to travel to a couple of different states to look at some different properties. So I wanted to be careful with this like house hunting process and sharing this part with you guys for a couple of reasons. Obviously for like our family's privacy and everything, I need to be careful. But also when you're going through other people's homes and looking at other people's homes, I wanted to be respectful of their privacy as well. So I'm gonna kind of take you guys through and talk to you and share with you in this video about the different properties that we looked at, things we liked, things we didn't, and I'm just gonna kind of show you clips and stuff along the way. So I'm not gonna do like a full tour of any of the homes just because I don't feel like that's very respectful to the owners, but I'm gonna show you stuff. I'm gonna show you certain things that I feel like were key things that we either loved or didn't love. We decided to just go ahead and have my mom and I go and start looking because we knew that we needed to get our feet into the soil and sort of figure out what things would work and what wouldn't. Acreage and stuff like that can be hard to envision unless you see it, you know, even aerial views and stuff like that. We were surprised. There were certain things where we thought, oh, we definitely need X amount of acreage. We definitely need this much land. But then when we got there and looked around, we were like, holy cow, this is actually a lot of land. And we didn't think it would be, but like, this is a lot of land. So we really wanted to get our feet in there and just see properties, see what square footage felt like depending on layout, see what a home that was like turnkey versus need a lot of renovation. Like how scary is that actually? Because there's a difference between just some little cosmetic things and something that needs a major renovation. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and chat about some of these houses that we looked at and where we're kind of at and what we're thinking. In the first state that we were in, we were actually supposed to see 5 properties. One of them got taken off the market before we got a chance to see it, and the other one went under contract before we had our appointment. So we ended up seeing 3 properties in the first state, and they were in similar like areas, like parts of town, maybe like 30 minutes or so from each other on different, you know, sides of the highway kind of a thing. So the first one that we saw, the house itself was really beautiful. It did need a lot of cosmetic work, but nothing major in terms of renovation. But it really didn't have, like, it had a basement, and that's kind of stuff we were looking for, is like, do they have basements that we can renovate to make more bedrooms? We're not trying to get a house that has 8 bedrooms or anything like that. But making more bedrooms, is that an option? But this one I really liked, like the big open feel. It had a beautiful view. There was a lot of potential with the house. It had a garage that could be finished in, kind of like what we have now. And like I said, it had a basement that had a lot of potential in my opinion. So I really liked that part of it. And it was very secluded. You had to come through a gate and go down like, I mean, probably, I don't know, 5 acres of like forest basically before you got to where the house was. So it was very private and I really liked that. The disappointing thing with this one was when we went outside and went down to where the barn and stuff was, it was just like literally a patch of land with a shed on it. It wasn't fully fenced. There was no actual barn, and that was it. It was like on a hillside, so there was no spot to add any more pasture land or barn or anything. And it was towards the top of our budget. So there's just no way that we could add everything that needed to be added without completely busting the budget on this one. So this one we were able to write off pretty quickly. Which was, like I said, a bummer. The house was great, but the rest of it just did not work at all. The next place that we went to was one that, oh man, this one is definitely still on my list. The land was absolutely beautiful. It has a beautiful barn. It had arenas, riding arenas, just so beautiful. The pastures and everything. The house, you know, in the listing pictures when someone was living there and it was being cared for, it looked nice. The kitchen was already renovated, not necessarily how I would do it or how I would like it, but it was already done. The big thing with this one was it had a lot of square footage, more square footage than we have now, but you guys know the one thing I've said about square footage is that, and with our house, is like layout is everything. So if you have a lot of square footage, that's great, but only if it's laid out well. And you can also have a house that is less square footage, but if it's laid out well, it feels bigger and it feels like more and it's more functional. This was one of those where it really wasn't laid out all that well. So to me, I mean, it was like, I feel like the square footage when you were actually in there, it was like, okay, these bedrooms are enormous. But again, this one needed total bathroom renovations, not kitchen right away, but eventually I would want to do something different because I didn't love the kitchen. This one had a pool, but again, everything was very much in disrepair. It had been being rented out. So the house was in quite a bit of disrepair. It had like a building at the back that could very well be my office, very much like this she shed now, which was awesome. And it had like it had a like 2-car garage that was separate. So that could be a cool like man cave / tool shed type thing for CR, for him to have all that stuff, or we could do like a bunch of craft stuff out there. I mean, so many options for that, which were really awesome. It had like an old vintage like school bell, dinner bell thing, which I absolutely loved. And a room that was just all windows, like windows on every side that would make a really cool like homeschool room. So there was a lot of things about this property that I really loved. But again, it was towards the top of the budget and it was gonna need work, and it would need work before we could live in it. That's one of the other things is it something that we can move into, or is it something that we would have to wait to move into until we did some things? To me, this was a property that we would probably need a good week to work in before we could move the kids into it safely and efficiently, because it just, yeah, it needed that. So that one, like I said though, the barn, the land, everything was so amazing. The next house, this one, oh man, okay. This one was like on the top of, I call it a mountain. It wasn't really like on the top of a mountain, but it seemed like it was. It like had its own little hilltop, mountaintop that you went to. It had a beautiful tree-lined drive, like just, I mean, I could see it at Christmas time and at fall, like the beautiful tree-lined drive was so beautiful. And then you get to the top where the house is, and again, it's got a beautiful barn, 2 riding arenas, hay storage, all of these things. The pastures were already done and fenced. These things can add up very quickly for horses, which is what my parents, as you guys know, they currently have 8 horses. I don't think they're gonna keep that many long term, but they have 8 right now. So we need a place that's safe and ready for them, or we can get ready for them quickly. So this had all of that. The house itself was older, but it was so well cared for and loved and clean, and like you could have eaten off the floor. That lady kept that house immaculately clean. It had a lot of square footage, over 3 floors. So it had like a basement, a main floor, and an upper floor. The bedrooms again were enormous, and there was so much we could do in terms of making a homeschool area, an office area, kids rooms, guest rooms, just so much potential. Finishing in the basement had like sort of like a garage storage room that could be finished in as another family room. There's just endless potential there with what could be done. And it was a little bit lower on, not at the low end, but sort of more in the middle of budget. So the kitchen did need a full renovation, and the bathrooms needed renovation as well. Everything else would pretty much have been like paint stuff. There's definitely a lot of work to do, but again, very, very livable while the work was being done, and no problem living in there right now as it is. Just needed to, you know, get moving on the work because the house was very, very dated. It did also have a pool, which I know the kids would love. Pools, I am 50-50 on. I know the kids would love to have a pool, and I would someday love for them to have a pool. They also scare the bejesus out of me. If you've seen our other vlogs, you know that like just having this many kids around water constantly scares the poo out of me. It's just one of my mama fears and anxieties is kids and water, and specifically like pools. Yeah, it made me very nervous, and I'm not writing off homes that have pools, but I'm not like putting that on the like must have a pool as part of my checklist, if you will. So this one, like I said, checked so many boxes, and I really felt like this might be the one, like it could be the one. So then the next day we went to another state, a different state, and we were actually supposed to see another house that morning in that same state, but the seller had just recently had surgery, was not in good health, and just couldn't get it together for us to have a showing. So that was fine, I understood. And I am very much of the mindset that like, what will be, will be. So I'm not going to push anything, I'm not gonna force anything. If stuff like that happens, you know, 3 of the houses we were supposed to see, we didn't end up getting to. So I just write those off as like those were not meant to be. So we ended up going to another town and saw one house that day. And this was another state and another town, obviously. And this one was wow, wow, wow. The house itself, holy cow. A early 1900s home that had been fully renovated. And I don't mean they went to Lowe's and bought products at Lowe's. This thing was renovated probably with some kind of a designer, someone who understood like period correct and or historical homes and how to renovate them. It was, man, oh man, so beautiful on the inside. So beautiful on the inside. The land was also very, very beautiful. It had pastures already fenced. It did not have a barn, but it had a really beautiful gated entrance. The house was set back way far from the road, which is something that I wanted. I don't want our house right up next to a road, especially if it's a semi-busy road. It was set way far back. Everything was, like I said, renovated just beautifully. The master suite, there was 2 actually master suites, big giant rooms with en-suites, and both the bathrooms were renovated, like had freestanding tubs, pedestal sinks, beautiful showers with like the rain shower. So probably depending on which kids ended up in that room, like kids would get really nice bathrooms. Like all the bathrooms were really nice. They really paid attention to every detail in this home. The thing I loved most about this home was the kitchen. It was very much a home that the kitchen was the heart of the home. It was right there in the middle. The way it was shaped, you could see into all the rooms. It had another big, beautiful sunroom full of windows with a fireplace that would be perfect for a homeschool room. This house is definitely still on the list. Definitely. We just need to figure out and make sure that everything will work with horse stuff and my parents' house and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot still there to consider, but it is still very much on the list. I see so much future potential here. It is towards the top of the budget, but the home doesn't need any renovations. So we could move in and live in it right away and not have any problems. And my parents' horses could come right away, you know, but we would still need to build a barn and get my parents' house onto the property that they're gonna move onto the property and all of that stuff. So there's still much to do, but the house itself was ready to go. The other one that we saw there, I just immediately didn't like. We pulled in, the house was too close to the road for my liking, way too close to the road. It was built in the 1990s. It was a brick home, so a very sturdy home that would last a very long time. Big piece of property, but there just wasn't any character. There wasn't any character in the home. There wasn't any character to the property. It was kind of like big flat piece of land, box house. And yes, it would need a total renovation. It was lower on the budget, definitely room in the budget for the renovation the house would need. But by renovation, I mean all like mostly cosmetic things. It would need the kitchen redone, bathrooms redone, but nothing structural, if that makes sense. So, and it had lots of space, plenty of space for us. I can't remember how many square feet it was, but it was a lot of square feet. But it didn't speak to me. It didn't speak to me at all. And I felt sad about that because I felt like, oh, if this one works, it's got the land, it's got the house size is there. Like there's no concessions in that area. But it just didn't speak to me when we were standing out there. The road noise was so loud. It was a very busy road and the house was pretty close to the road. And I just felt like with kids and pets and animals and other things, like just didn't feel right. So I mentally wrote that one off very quickly. And then the last one. Okay. I pulled up to this driveway. We opened the gate, pulled in, and I fell in love with this piece of land. If you understand what it is to love a place, like a place that you step foot in, this was that feeling for me. Like, this was I just looked around and thought, like, this is a tiny piece of heaven on earth. There is a pond with ducks in it. It's about 20 acres, and there are huge oak trees spilling over the driveway, a magnolia tree that must be 300 years old. I mean, it is a massive magnolia tree out front. This beautiful, like from the front, historical home with two porches, you know, the upper porch and the lower porch and the sort of pillars. And it was absolutely stunning, just took my breath away. And as we walked the property, I just could see all the things that this place could be someday. This was a place I could see raising my kids for the rest of my life. I could see myself living for the rest of my life. I could see my grandkids coming here. I could see everything. I could envision what was possible here. It already had a barn. It had some fencing, not enough. We would have to do more fencing. We would have to, again, add my parents' place and all of that. They did already have a horse there. And like I said, it had a barn. It had a separate garage, another storage building, hay storage. So we wouldn't have to add all of that stuff. All of that was there. So it was really just a beautiful piece of land. Like, if you could love a piece of land, like, this is it. It was a beautiful piece of land. The home was built even earlier than the other one, at the very beginning of the 1900s. And the actual original home itself had been fairly decently restored. There's carpet that needs to be pulled up, there's blue walls, but it's actually it was pretty good. Like the hardwoods and everything, it just needed some mostly cosmetic things. The floor did feel like it was tilting a little bit, which is one of two things. Either just that's the way it is because it's an old house, or structurally the foundation is not good. And that would obviously be a big problem. Now, the home had an addition that was built onto it, probably, judging by the countertops and the wallpaper, in the 1970s, I would say. And it's a really, truly terrible addition. And I say that with all my love in my heart to the owners, who I'm sure loved it at the time that they put it in, but it doesn't fit with the house at all. It doesn't. You go from these big 12-foot ceilings in the historical home to these low, low ceilings in this other house. It's very compartmentalized. It's not open. It would need, to be totally honest, I don't think there's an option to renovate what's there in terms of the addition. I think the addition would have to be demolished and you would have to build a new addition. Obviously, that is a lot of money. The home is at the bottom of the budget. It's under budget. But is it under budget enough to leave us the money for the renovations that are needed of the house? We could live in the house now. It's being lived in now. So we could live in it. There's enough space for us to live in it now. But once you started tearing down the renovated or the addition portion and working on putting up a new addition, we would probably have to bounce between living in portions of the home, living in our camper. There's a 2-car garage there that we could finish in as a living space to hang out, but it would be a huge project. It would be a giant undertaking, a massive project. But when it was done, it would be magical, just magical. So I am sometimes way too, I can envision things, right? I can see like what this could be, but the execution of getting it there, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that. I don't know if we can do it. You know, I don't know if we can do it. So there is so much to think about, so much to consider. We're not done looking, we're still looking. But that place, two of the places really have my heart. And so we're really kind of talking about, you know, whether or not we think either one of those could be it, or if we want to just keep looking, you know, I don't know. So, I mean, we're always continuing to look, but we're not ready to make an offer on anything yet, but we're definitely, man, I fell in love with some places, some little towns, some people. It was such, I'm so glad that my mom and I did this. It was difficult for me to be away for a few days, considering all the things we're trying to do and work stuff and kids and all that. Like, it was very difficult for me to be away for a few days, but I'm so glad that we did, because it really gave us a feel for some of these places that we've been looking at. And I think it's critically important that I physically go to these places and get a vibe for the towns, the cities, all of that for our whole family, you know, like what's it like there? What's the makeup like? What are the people like? You know, like I said, like diversity and all that kind of stuff is very important for us. So trying to find a home that is, you know, kind of where we get the home that feels like we're in the country, but we're still in a city that is, or a town that is large enough for everything that everybody needs and all of that stuff. So I do think that we are finding that, which is awesome. And now it's just going to be a matter of finding the exact right place that works for everybody. And it is overwhelming when you are trying to find a place that works for both us with our 8 kids and my parents with their 8 horses who are like their children. So, you know, making sure that it works for everybody is definitely tough. It's not impossible though. And that's the thing. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And the best things are hard. You know, hard isn't always bad, I say. Har, har, har. So this is truly that situation, like, again, like coming to life is this idea that, like, dang, this is difficult, this is challenging, this is forcing us all to be really honest with ourselves and be really open and communicate with everybody things we like and don't like and stuff like that. But I think in the end, I just keep praying that the Lord will make clear the right place for us to go, the right house for us to move to, and that I still feel like we're walking through the open doors and I feel like we're on the right path. So that's it for today's vlog-ish video. I wanted to update you guys. I know a lot of you were really curious about the houses we were looking at and stuff, so I wanted to share that with you guys. So that's it for today's video, y'all. I'm back. I've got my overall, you can see I'm doing yard work and painting and all that stuff. I got my overalls on. When you got your overalls on, it's time to get down to business. So that's what I'm gonna do today. For the rest of the day, we will be back and we will see y'all again very soon. Bye.